Hello, Georg, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Val. I can hear you well.
Good,
How are you?
fantastic. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Yeah.
That's okay. That's great. Lovely cover in the background. That's the new JPEG cover page, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. A planetary material under the SEM. So very cool. We're
It
getting
looks very nice indeed. So,
yes.
thanks for making time today. I want to use the opportunity to address some of the aspects that are repeatedly coming to the editors of the journal, and that is about the publication process.
Okay.
Several people, particularly young researchers, are approaching editors quite frequently about the different steps of the publication process. So I was hoping I could use you as the chief editor here to kind of quickly go through the steps of the publication process to bring clarity to this for those people who haven't fully experienced all the steps. So
Sounds good.
if that sounds all right to you, I guess
Yeah.
I'll start. So, I mean, just very briefly, obviously, the first thing is you have to write the manuscript. When you write the manuscript for JPEG, is there any particular things you would think are important for producing a good manuscript that JPEG would be interested in?
Yes. So, well, if you're talking about the publication process, I think I should talk about formatting, first of all. And that can also be the case for a bad manuscript, obviously. But in order to actually get it into my office, because all manuscripts are screened before they come to me, you have to have the text followed by the figure captions all in one document. And then you have the figures individually uploaded. I guess the text, the references are after the text, and then the figure captions are after the references, and then you upload all the figures and tables. And they need to be individually uploaded. Journal of Petrology has enough submissions so that we have that luxury. Other journals, they allow authors to have in-text figures and pre-formatting and so on. We don't do that because it just delays things at a later stage when it comes to the final submission of the manuscript. And we want to speed up these things. So you need to get the formatting right in the beginning. And in terms of the quality of the paper, well, there are different kinds of papers. So there are letter scripts, up to 4,000 words, up to 4 multi-panel figures. And there are original manuscripts, which are typically up to 12,000 words. And they are concise, but they are typically quite data rich. And what we want to see in Journal of Petrology is that you don't bring in just a local study of local interests, but that what you present is actually of global interest internationally. So you may have a local study, but that local study may have implications for other locations on the planet.
That's very important. I agree. I
Yes.
think so. Yes, there has to be an implication that's beyond the local area that you're working in. Now, a quick word on data. These days, data accessibility is, of course, extremely important. And how do you want to see data submissions?
Well, all the data that you use in your manuscript need to be presented at the initial submission, okay? So you can either upload it onto a database and then provide DOI links, but what is typically done is that you provide all the data as supplementary files or within the text. And the supplementary files can be Excel tables or other databases. And if there's computing involved, then any code also needs to be submitted.
Very good, very good. Yes, I think this is important to stress. The data need to be there. They need to be accessible either as part of the manuscript or independently published in some database that is accessible and long-term accessible. The internet has these short-lived features, and you need to be very careful about that. If things are not sustainable in the long run, it's not a good option, and the editor will likely give you criticism for it. Now, once the paper...
Also, of course, if I may intersect, the reviewer that ultimately, hopefully, will hold your script in his hands, or her, will want to be able to plot the data themselves, or maybe look at other correlations. This has happened before where reviewers actually have taken the data and reproduced it and have made arguments on basis of other correlations that the authors haven't pointed out, for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. So now the paper is submitted, and I think it's very important, as you say, that the figures at the end of the manuscript, this makes editors' lives a lot easier. In figure kind of in text figures are often a bit painful. So, and this is a common mistake.
Actually the figures are not included in the Bird manuscript, but they will be compiled towards the end of the manuscript when the PDF compilation is happening on the system. But the figure captions should be at the end. Yes.
Great. So once it is submitted, what happens then? What happens to the manuscript once it's in your hands?
Well, and once it's submitted, it's not in my hands yet. It goes through initial editorial checkings. So I can see the manuscript on the site, but I'm not being notified that it's being submitted. Okay. These checks include, for example, if your manuscript is more than 12,000 words and you have not given a reason why your manuscript is particularly long. And what reason you have doesn't matter in this stage. If it doesn't contain a reason, it will be rejected, and you will be, well, not rejected, it will be returned to you, so unsubmitted, and you will be asked to provide that reason for before the manuscript goes further. There are also other things like figure formatting and so on that are in that initial editorial check. When it passes that initial editorial check, which may take a couple of days, and certainly if you submit on a Friday night, it probably only comes to me on Monday or Tuesday. So if you're close to submission and you want to have a free weekend, then yes, by all means, submit it on Friday. But
nobody will look at it on a Saturday.
If you still want to tinker with the script, it doesn't matter in terms of speed whether you work on it until Sunday night or not.
Yes.
Then it comes into my hands, and so I will look at it. Okay, so some scripts are obviously not suitable for Journal of Petrology. For example, I frequently get submissions regarding subjects of petroleum geology, and these are outright rejected because the authors simply thought petrology has to do with petroleum. So there are other scripts that are clearly not data rich enough for me to be considered. And data rich can either mean you have a lot of standard data, or you have few but very difficult to obtain data. So for example, if you have new isotopic systems that you're developing or have developed, then you don't need 100 data points on these. So there's a balance to strike. But if you're mostly doing like standard data, then you want to have more than 5 data points that you present. Yeah.
I would think you're right there. Yes, good.
Yeah, of course, oftentimes people kind of cite previously published data and they add their 5 data points to fields on their figures or to other previously published data. Oftentimes that's not enough because your 5 data points won't change the 100 pre-existing points in terms of your findings. So if the manuscript is not data rich enough, or if I feel that is of only local interest, then I will reject it outright before it even goes to an associate editor. Oftentimes scripts go to associate editors, and I will make that decision very quickly. I won't be so I will look essentially at the figures, I will look at the abstract, I will look at your cover letter. The cover letter should also outline why you feel that this is an important new finding that you're presenting and why it will be of interest to the global audience. And then I will briefly look over the script, and then I will make a decision. Basically, it takes me about 20 minutes to make a decision if it goes on to an associate editor. And then the associate editor gets it into their hands. I select the editor. You may indicate preferred and opposed associate editors in your submission process. That means that I won't choose an opposed editor, but I may not choose the preferred editor because I have to also balance the number of scripts that all the editors handle. So it will go to an editor if I find that the script may have merit. And then the associate editor gets the scripts in their hand. And you're an associate editor, so you can basically now tell
yes, now it comes to
what
me.
you're doing.
That's right, Georg, absolutely. What happens then is that I will look at the manuscript, or the associate editor looks at the manuscript, and also takes about, I would say about 20 minutes, as you say, maybe half an hour, to get a feel for the manuscript, to see whether it has enough substance, whether it kind of does the right structures, whether there's issues with it or not. There's the option then for another outright rejection from the associate editor. So even if it passed your assessment from the chief editor, the associate editor might find a problem with it. These are often very awkward problems. They're not strictly science problems. They are sometimes problems like something is ethically not entirely right. There was a case where some of the authors had passed away years ago, and technically, according to the Vancouver recommendations, there's an ethical issue if the authors have not all seen the manuscript or things like that. So, and there could also be the judgment that in detail, maybe it's not entirely good enough in terms of the local versus regional versus global implications. So, but if the manuscript is deemed of sufficient quality to be reviewed, then the associate editor has the task of selecting reviewers. And there's a database for Journal of Petrology. And of course, the associate editor also knows people in the field. So then the manuscript
Can I just quickly intersect?
Sure.
So the reason that the associate editors also have the option to outright reject the paper is that I am an igneous petrologist, geochemist, volcanologist in my expertise. And even though I handle the scripts on metamorphic and economic geology and planetary materials, I may not have the full insights of whether something in these areas is really high level or not in terms of. So that's why the associate editors also have the chance to outright reject, because I may say, yeah, this might be a good script. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I will then select an associate editor who has that expertise, and they can make that call then themselves.
Yes, that makes entirely sense. So, okay, anyway, then the associate editor approaches potential reviewers with the abstract of the manuscript. And then these potential reviewers, they have the option to say yes or no. Sometimes it's very swift to find 2 to 3 expert reviewers. Sometimes it takes several weeks because some manuscripts are more unorthodox or unconventional, and then it might be a little bit more tricky. Or sometimes the field is not so big, and the important people in the field might just be on field work. Strangely enough, if the field is not big, you may actually find that the 3 most important people are jointly on some field work together. So, and this makes it very challenging sometimes to find reviewers. So this can take some weeks. And then once we have
having said that, you are essentially selecting reviewers, and the author can also indicate preferred and opposed reviewers. Okay.
Absolutely.
So when you're selecting reviewers and the reviewer might decline, then they also get the option to suggest new or alternative reviewers. And what Journal of Petrology does specifically is we are asking reviewers who decide not to review for whatever reason to specifically think about early career researchers who might be suitable reviewers, because we really like to involve the early career researchers into the reviewing community. And oftentimes the early career researchers look at scripts with different eyes and have slightly different opinions than more advanced researchers. So and that may possibly be very good. So we want early career researchers to act as reviewers.
Absolutely.
And also we ask authors to indicate if they are early career researchers in the script, the corresponding or first author. If they are early career researchers, we specifically look at the script quite openly and try to really find good reviewers to give good feedback, and also try to get back to the authors in a very reasonable time frame, i.e. less than 3 months. Sometimes it's not possible, but sometimes, oftentimes it is. We will make every effort to support the early career researchers.
Absolutely. So let's move on in the interest of time. Once we then have reviews coming in, 2 to 3, exceptional cases might require 4 reviews, but usually 2 to 3. Then sometimes the reviews are very clear and everybody agrees about the quality of the manuscript. Sometimes they're very dispersed, and this is where the associate editor has to make a first judgment about which of the reviews is the most the most realistic, and then the associate editor has to come with a summary recommendation that then goes back to you as the executive editor. And the recommendation is either that the manuscript is amazing, then the other option is that there will be moderate revisions and or major revisions, or that the manuscript is actually rejected. There's 2 rejection options. One is that the manuscript is rejected but can be resubmitted after substantial overhaul and revision, or it is outright is finally rejected, meaning that there's no way that this can be fixed in any major way, and then the authors cannot resubmit.
Well, that's actually not, well, it's strictly speaking, it's true. The outright rejection doesn't prevent authors to resubmit their manuscript, but because we can't prevent authors to press the submit button. But if they have basically the same script and they submit it again, then it will be outright rejected.
That's the point. So I mean,
the reject and resubmit option is essentially an encouragement to resubmit after substantial revisions, because we feel that there may be great merit in this script if it has experienced a major overhaul. And particularly for early career researchers, we like to choose that option if that script is not there yet, to give them another chance. It's not to say that early career researchers will always get rejected and resubmit. Basically, no.
I don't think so, no.
So for early career researchers, we if it's a rejection, we often encourage resubmission. For more senior researchers, that happens more rarely. Let's put it that way. And of course, early career researchers oftentimes also get minor or major revision requests. Yes.
Sure. I mean, I've rarely seen it that a manuscript is at a level where it can be accepted right away. I mean, there's always some suggestions by the reviewer, some questions, some clarifications required, etc. So then it goes back to you, actually, with the recommendation of the associate editor, and then you have to make a decision what to do with it, whether you trust your associate editor or whether you feel that something is required in addition to the evaluation by the associate editor.
So essentially, as executive editor, I see myself as executing the recommendation of the associate editors. So I trust completely my associate editorial team. You will be happy to hear. The only thing that can happen is that there is some process problem during this submission process or reviewing process. And if there are some process problems, like maybe reviewers have found out about that they are reviewing the same script and have talked to each other about it and things like that. That hasn't actually happened to me, but anyway, this is just an example. If there's a process issue, then I may rescind the recommendation and send it back to the associate editor to make sure that process issue, if there is one, is being sorted out before they make their final decision or a recommendation, which I then take and convert into a decision.
Good. So then the decision is shared with the authors, and then in case of very small revisions, minor revisions, a certain time frame is provided by which the authors are expected to return the manuscript. If it's major revisions, then the time frame is longer. And
yes, it's 3 months and 6 months. And in terms in the case of reject and resubmit, it's 9 months. However, there is the option of extensions. Okay, so while the system, in case of minor revisions after 3 months, will not allow you to resubmit the script, you can just drop a line to the editorial office, to the editorial manager, and ask for an extension and explain how much longer you will need, and then the extension will be given. Okay, so this is just a process.
Absolutely, yes. So I always thought that there was a lot of room if you have issues. I mean, I've never seen that a request for an extension has been declined. So from that point of view, people have some time flexibility there, which I think is a very nice possibility to have. You know, we all have lives, and there may be things that come up, and this could be a useful thing for people to be aware of. So you don't need to stress about, I have only 3 weeks left. If something else happens in your life, then you have quite the possibility to contact the associate editor who's handling the manuscript and ask for an extension, which in almost all cases will be granted.
Yeah, it will be granted, definitely. And we have had major submission scripts that major revision scripts that have been in the system with extensions for an additional 6 to 9 months before they were resubmitted. So there's really a lot of flexibility there.
Great. Okay, let's move on then. So the manuscript comes back, and the revisions have been done, and it eventually comes back to the associate editor after you had a little look at it, I guess.
No, I'm not. The system immediately, well, the revised manuscript goes to editorial checks, so I don't see it. I see it coming in, but I don't get notified.
You're not actually looking at it at this point.
And then it used to be the case that I get it, and then I select
thought it was,
again.
yeah,
but I decided this is too much trouble.
You changed that. Yeah. Okay,
so
very good.
So I fixed it. It goes straight to the associate editor who handled it in the first place, unless the author requests you have to do that then by writing to me that the associate editor who has handled it beforehand should not handle it in the revised format. Or if the associate editor decides he's too linked to this field and maybe conflicted now, and he wasn't beforehand, and the associate editor suggests that they will want to find someone else. And
That's
then
a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. I remember a case where some editor said, oh, I can't handle this anymore because this person has just applied for a position I advertised. And then suddenly there has been a conflict of interest situation that was actually not the case at the initial submission stage. And then, of course, we have to act and remedy that situation. Okay, eventually then, if it's minor revisions and all the points have been addressed in the revised version, mostly the associate editor will look at it and make a decision if this was sufficiently done. And if so, then the manuscript can be accepted at that stage. If it was major revisions, the associate editor has to make a decision if he or she can handle this at this point, or if he or she wants to have one of the reviewers or two of the reviewers to look at this again, just in case. If it's a bit further removed from the speciality of the associate editor, this is not uncommon that the initial reviewers are asked again to see, has this been done properly? Has this been addressed properly? And then there may be a second round of comments in such a case coming back to the authors. So, but
But having said that, it sounds like a very long-winded process, but typically scripts, the average acceptance timescale between first submission and acceptance is well below a year, okay? So that means some manuscripts, if they go through several review iterations, then they may be more than a year in the review process. But many manuscripts actually will pass through one or two reviews stages and still be below a year. It also depends on how quickly the revisions are being handled by the authors, obviously.
Absolutely, and how much care they are taking. I personally think it's very important that the authors really address every comment and write a response to every comment by the reviewers. Even if they disagree, a response is needed, that it says, we disagree with this comment because of this and that, so that the editor, the associate editor, can actually make an informed decision. So that
and what is very important there also is that not only you write in your response letter whether you think that's good or not, but also what you have changed in your manuscript in response to that comment. And maybe you disagree with the reviewer on a point, but it basically would be because the reviewer has misunderstood something or something wasn't clear enough that you've pointed out. And so even if you disagree, you want to kind of have a sentence where you state what you've changed in your manuscript so that other readers don't come up with that same idea that the reviewer disagreed with.
Yes, and important from an associate editor point of view is that you actually say what has been done. So you can even say, I agree with the reviewer. Fair enough, but I mean, if you don't tell me as the associate editor, I have changed the sentence on page 7 to read now this or that, then I can't actually judge what's really going on. So the important thing is, you need to say what you have done, how you have modified the manuscript. And this is something a lot of people don't get quite right in their response letters. And I wish there would be more clarity, and this will speed up the process enormously. So from that point of view, this is a big recommendation that I'd like to bring to people's attention here. Okay, we're almost out of time, Georg, so let's finish up and let's publish the manuscript, our hypothetical manuscript. So let's assume all the things are fixed now and everything is good after 1 or 2, or in very rare cases, 3 rounds of iterations if it's a complicated task. Then eventually the associate editor will recommend publication. And then it goes back to you, I guess.
Yes, and then I decide on acceptance, and I look at the script quite carefully, and I think about whether this script is an editor's choice script, which would mean free access from the start. I select about maybe 12 to 20 or so articles as editor's choice articles per year. I will not read the paper from beginning to end at this stage. The previous editor-in-chief, Marge Wilson, used to, and that held up the 180 scripts that she handled per year significantly. And I basically trust my associate editors, but I will have a look at the paper and consider if it's an editor's choice paper or not. And then I will put it down as accepted, and then it goes into the production line. And in the production process, I'm not exactly sure what happens. I'm sorry to say.
This is
some people
outsourced,
from
of course.
production look at
Yeah.
it, obviously. And after about, well, within a couple of weeks, sometimes even much faster, the manuscript will appear with its abstract and with the PDF of the last submission downloadable in the advanced access section of Journal of Petrology, where it will remain for maybe up to 6 weeks. Basically, what will happen is once that has happened, production will get in touch with the authors and ask, after a few weeks, the authors will get the proofs. So the production is doing some formatting, deciding where the figures should go, etc., etc. And then the authors get the proofs, and they have some time to respond to the proofs. And if they do it within 24 hours, then it goes straight back and is being handled by production again. And in that case, it may be that after just a few weeks, it moves from advanced access into the final published volume.
Wonderful. And there's another thing, of course, it's about the open access versus other options, but maybe that's for another conversation.
Yes.
The authors have to make a choice about that. And of course, everybody is very keen to have open access, but this comes with a fee. And many countries...
Unless your institution has an agreement with
many
Oxford
countries
University
or
Press.
institutions have agreements now, and luckily this applies to my institution here. So then the fee is covered, and this is, of course, a big advantage for the individual researcher. Now the paper is published, and you can harvest citations and fame and glory. So, and I think I'd like to thank you for summarizing this process, and I hope this will be useful to some people out there. So, and particularly young researchers, that early career researchers that have not the full experience of this process. So hopefully we were able to help them a little bit with this conversation. Georg, thank you very much.
Thank you, Val. It was good. Let's do that again.
Great. No, I think so too. Hopefully we can help some people to write very good JPET and other papers, of course, as well. Okay, all the very best. Thank you, and talk again very soon.
Thank you, Val.
Bye.
Bye.